Okay, so hi everyone. We're not starting yet. We're going to start in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
I see that we already have an audience, so I'm just going to do some housekeeping announcements. We are going to start, as I mentioned, in really shortly. We have a great lineup of speakers, with the main stage going to Hope in Maine. And then we have great testimonials from Israeli companies. In the meantime, feel free to send us questions. You have the Q&A chat box, and you also have the main chat. So you can use both of them to send us questions for the Q&A session at the end. We're going to round some things up to 6 p.m. Israel, which is in an hour from now. We're going to be right on time. So thank you again for joining us, and we're starting in 2 minutes.
Hadass, are you recording the event?
Yes. So
Great.
we are recording the event, and after the event, I will send out an email to all the participants, everyone who registered, with all the speakers' information, your presentations, and a recording of the webinar. So don't worry, you're going to have all the information just sent directly to you.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So do we have Hillary with us? Not Hillary, I'm sorry. Do we have Kathy with us? Not yet.
I don't know if she logged in a different way. She have a problem.
Okay, so I think we should go ahead and start. What do you think?
Yep.
Okay.
Go for
Great.
it.
Wonderful.
בהצלחה, תודה.
So hi again, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on the U.S. food sector and opportunities for Israeli companies. We're doing a spotlight on Rhode Island, this exciting state, which we love. And we're going to talk about how can you enter the American food market through Rhode Island, and use the state's organizations and resources as your launch pad for the food market. I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Hadass Tzul. I'm in charge of the North American markets at the Federation of Israeli Chambers of Commerce, talking to you from Tel Aviv. Those of you who don't know the Chamber, we're the largest and oldest business organization. We represent the private business sector. We have a lot of food companies with us, whether they are importers or exporters. So that's, you know, being Israeli, you deal a lot with food, and it's something that we're very invested in at the chamber as well. So feel free to reach out after the webinar, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker for today. He's our dear friend and colleague, Avi Nevel, who's the president and CEO of Rod Island Israel Collaborative. They are our longtime partners and our go-to person in Rhode Island, so we're very happy to collaborate on this event. And Avi, I'm going to stop my screen, and you can go ahead and take it from here.
Let me just share my screen. Okay, let me just make it bigger here from the beginning. Okay, first of all, Hadass, shalom lekol hamaazinim, good evening in Israel, everybody, and thank you, Hadass, for being the forefront and organizing it with the Chamber of Commerce. We cannot be more than happy to be partnering with the Federation of the Israeli Chamber of Commerce. We done work in the past during our missions and to Israel in 2011, 13, and 16, and we have unbelievable good relation. And thank you, Hadass, and your team. And by the way, Uriel Lin was here in Rhode Island a few years ago as well. As I said, my name is Avi Nevel. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative. And I'm so happy that we have this event. I would like to also thank the Israeli Consulate General in New England and Ambassador Zev Boker. They are amazing partners, and we're working with them constantly. We're looking to make it even further strong relation. Unfortunately, he's leaving back to Israel soon, and we're looking forward to the others. Then I want to talk about, of course, Hope in Maine. Lisa is the founder, and she'll be the speaker. We have an amazing partnership. Lisa is a force in the food industry here, and you cannot find someone that's more understanding and helping small businesses in the food tech. And I'm sure she'll talk. And of course, we have our Israeli other speakers here, which we were happy to introduce them to Lisa, and they're really an example of success. And last but not least, Rhode Island Commerce. We are very happy to work with Rhode Island Commerce. They're always helping, and it's a great trip together. So our mission is very simple. Connect Israel, Rhode Island in business, academic, and research. There is a long history going back between Israel to relation, going to 1860. Money from Rhode Island helped to build Mishkanot Sha'ananim, and we'll share the link so you can see that and why it changed the history of Israel. In 2016, we are very pleased that the governor of Rhode Island, Gina Raimondo, was the first sitting governor in office to come to Israel with the Secretary of Commerce. He's standing behind her, the tall guy. And then you can see the Consul General. And it was a very, very successful trip which led to already agreements between Israel and Rhode Island companies. Our collaboration with the Hope in Maine is unbelievable. And you can see here, we had Israeli chefs, Avital Sabag, Avner Laskin, Gil Chovav. And of course, we have our speakers, Eran Geffen and Guy Chanukah. You can see them in the pictures. And we cannot be more pleased to see how they met and they work together, and they'll be an amazing partner for you. We have another program that we just running every month about Israeli companies who would like to come to Rhode Island. So if you know anybody that would like to feature on it also, and not necessarily in the food industry, please let us know. And last, I want to wish you all the listeners in Israel and here, Shana Tova v'Gmar Chatima Tova. And it's my pleasure to introduce you Hillary Fagan, who is the Vice President of Commissary. Hillary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Avi. Such great information. I'm going to share just a few slides to talk a little bit about what Rhode Island Commerce does and how we can help you. I head up the business development division within Rhode Island Commerce. We're the state's economic development arm. And we work with companies of all sizes looking to land and expand in the state. So you can think of us as sort of a consultancy for you. There is no, obviously, fee. We are here to help you be successful in Rhode Island and the Northeast. Let's see if I can change my slides. We all know, we're all in this industry, that food is a huge global business and it's growing. We in Rhode Island have a food strategy that was released by our governor. And we have a very interesting supply chain platform that you as a Rhode Island company can join, and it gives you visibility and potential business to sell into. Also, we have some of companies that are operating here already, and you can see some of the logos, and I'm happy to talk about any of these companies if there are questions at the end. Where is Rhode Island? You may know, but you may not. We are situated between Boston and New York City. We are in the heart of the $3.75 trillion economic corridor. If you need new customers, it is a really smart place to do business. We are completely connected, rail, air, everything, every means of transportation, and the whole state is a foreign trade zone. So if you have some trans-international business, it's a very good sort of place to operate. We also are much lower cost than Boston and New York City. You'll hear from everyone today. There are a lot of people thinking about food, and the resources for a small state are pretty incredible. I won't get into that. You'll hear more about some of these operations. And the last thing is, as you go through this process and thinking about expanding and where to work, we have tools to help you. Some of these tools will fit depending on the size of your entity and the size of the expansion you want to have in Rhode Island, and some of them won't. So I won't go through all of these, but a couple that are interesting. We have tax credit and incentive programs for companies coming into the state. And I'm happy to answer questions about how they work and operate. We have a very robust R&D tax credit. So if you're doing any kind of research and development, we have one of the most aggressive and by right, meaning everybody gets it for qualified R&D expenses. You don't have to apply for it. We have novel workforce training programs. If you need to find employees, we have a service that helps locate, screen, and present qualified candidates. We also do free PR and marketing for the jobs that you're trying to fill. And if any of the workers that you hire have a tech jobs, science, technology, engineering, math, and design, we have a program they can apply into to help them pay down student debt. You probably don't have that problem in Israel. It is a big problem in the US. So that's really it. I'm gonna stop sharing. We would love to engage and help you figure out if Rhode Island's a good fit. Back to you, Abby. And you're muted.
Thank you, Hillary. I'm just gonna jump quickly back to my presentation because I want to introduce our wonderful main speaker, Lisa Raiola, who's the president and founder of Open Main. Open Main is one of the leading hubs within the food sector in the US, launching over 300 businesses, helping international food companies enter the US food market. And Lisa has all the know-hows and about how to go about it. So I'm not gonna speak long. I'm gonna clear the stage for Lisa. And after that, we have also a panel with Israeli companies, so it should be exciting. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Hadass, and also to Zev, who's not here, and the Federation. You've been wonderful partners throughout this process, and we look forward to working with you in the future. as more Israeli companies express interest in exploring what Rhode Island has to offer. And there's no better ambassador than my friend Avi. He is really the embodiment of what these partnerships are all about. You know, bringing people together. We can't put them all in a room anymore like we used to, but we're working very closely with the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative because there's so many parallels between the small state of Rhode Island and the small nation state of Israel. And really it has to do with our need to be self-reliant, resilient, gritty, persistent, and that's everything that we are in Rhode Island, and it's everything that we are in Israel. I always like to preface these presentations to my Israeli colleagues by saying I'm a Jewish woman with a strange last name, Rayola, and and I live right down the street, 1 block away from the second oldest temple in Rhode Island. Avi mentioned the first, and my temple is almost 120 years old. So, and I will be there very shortly for the holidays. So Shana Tova to everyone as well. So let me tell you what I'm going to do today. Well, what I'm going to do is go back to my screen here. Let's see if we can go back to my presentation. Here it is. So let's do this. Okay. So I have a presentation that will take maybe 15 minutes, but I think it will be worth hearing because I have a lot of information that I want to share with you all today. I want to talk about, build on Hillary's comments regarding Rhode Island's investment in the food industry, and a little bit about our market landscape here, as well as how Hope in Maine offers a very specific suite of services to incubating and legacy businesses. Some of the special challenges and opportunities that we see in working with international food companies, a growing awareness of Israeli food products in the US, which you may or may not be aware of, the idea of co-branding and how important it is to new entrants, and how Rhode Island can be a very approachable market. Some of the COVID-driven food trends that we are seeing that I think create some real opportunities in this moment. And then we are going to have a Q&A with our wonderful panelists who I will introduce shortly. As Hillary said, this administration has really centered food as a great strength of Rhode Island, beginning back at the beginning of the administration with a report called Make It Happen, Rhode Island, and then the Brookings report, which essentially said that we have all the assets here to build a strong food economy. And here are some of the figures that were very compelling several years ago when our state became one of only 2 in the United States to create a position of essentially a food czar, someone who directs food policy for our state, because food systems are very complicated, involving many different departments within the state that need to coordinate to make the food systems and the food industry successful here. So we see one of the biggest things is the growth in agriculture. For a small state, agriculture was one of our fastest growing areas of industry. And some of the other things that you'll see here is the growth of specialty food sales, direct to consumer access of specialty foods, and the use of local ingredients. So we are very loyal to local here in Rhode Island. And as Hillary said, we issued the state's first comprehensive food plan in 2016, which you can take a look at. I put the website here. And one of the things that was important in this plan is the recognition that we needed this concierge type of approach to technical assistance for food companies. And Hope in Maine, the company that I founded actually 11 years ago now, was very much a part of that concierge approach. Food and beverage manufacturing ranks 8th in Rhode Island for overall manufacturing activity, with almost $400 million of revenues. And this is sort of interesting. This is the number of food businesses in Rhode Island, and you can see how the governor's focus on this really had an effect. You can see between 2015 and I have up to 2018 here, the growth of restaurants, and in particular the yellow band, the growth of food processors. You can see almost 500, it's actually more than that now. And of those, Hope in Maine launches 1 out of every 4 new food processing businesses in the state of Rhode Island is launched at our incubator. We, as Rhode Islanders, spend about $5 billion on food. We're small, but we're hungry. And one of the things that concerns us is that not enough of that money is going back into our food economy. And that's part of the reason to invest in value-added production and local production, because we want to be more self-sustaining and reliant on what is crafted, caught, and cultivated here in Rhode Island in a way that's very similar to Israel. So we think that the opportunity here is really to unleash Israel's very powerful startup nation culture on the challenges of building a more resilient and sustainable food system in Rhode Island, including the products and the technology that go with that. We think that COVID has created radical permissions to nurture and invest in emerging food businesses and what I call the food economy. And we think that the combination of Israel's ambitious entrepreneurs and our incubation acceleration system and the promotional support can really be helpful to bring this all together. Our vision, my vision when I started this in 2009, and by the way, we're in a school that was built in 1915. It was an elementary school that we upfitted for the purpose of a food incubator accelerator, which you see here, was really to support small and emerging businesses, because we think that a strong and resilient food economy is built on the shoulders of those entrepreneurs. We really believe that. We feel that to the extent we provide that support, that we will build a more equitable and sustainable food future. And we have been exporting this model all over the world, in fact, including to Israel. I'm also working on a project in the Galilee with the Jewish National Fund to build a global culinary institute there, which has been a really exciting project. This is a picture of our facility. We have 5 code compliant kitchens. We have all of the equipment for bottling, packaging, labeling, specialty baking, although one of our bakers I'm going to introduce you to would like at least one more special oven that we need to get him. We have a loading dock and cold and dry storage. We're about an 18,000 square foot facility. And this is an important slide, because the technical assistance we provide sort of is at all levels. I call it from recipe to product to brand to business. Some people come with just a recipe, a true startup, and what they need to be able to do is automate and scale that recipe, understand procurement, do their R&D, and be able to make a consistent product. We help with packaging, labeling, shelf stability, all of the testing, and getting our members into the right channels, whether it's wholesale or retail. And we also, by the way, do co-packing for our members. So if the member doesn't want to make the product themselves, we have a team that will make that product. And small batch manufacturing is very hard to find. We're the only place in Rhode Island that can do that. We help with trademarking, consumer testing, your value proposition, your social media and promotion. We can help you with debt and equity investment and working with commerce on that. We've had many success stories there. And for companies that start with us, we do help you with the exit strategy into either contract manufacturing, acquisition, or your own space. So these are just a couple examples of some companies that are what we call graduates of the incubation program. Sacred Cow, Halva Heaven, I know you recognize that product. Feast and Fettle, which is a prepared meals company, and Backyard Food. These are all $1 million to $3 million plus businesses that started at Hope in Maine with just a couple of employees. And in 5.5 years, we've launched almost 300 food businesses. 60 of them have graduated, and we have a very high survival rate. It's 50%, which by industry standards is almost 5 times the rate of survival that you see in the food industry. And as I said before, 1 out of 4 CPG, consumer packaged goods businesses in the region is launched from Hope in Maine. And all the 4 businesses you see depicted here are in national distribution across the United States. We support each stage of food production, promotion, and distribution. If you're just doing R&D, you might be pre-launch, you might be pivoting, you might be diversifying. We assist with that, as well as early stage micro manufacturing to get your minimal viable product out there, mid-stage growth, and then scaling and as I said, co-packing if you need a co-packing partner. So our model is really that we are, we create accessibility to many shared technical and business resources. Your R&D is very low risk, as well as the educational programming that is required for businesses at every stage. And a lot of that has to do with peer collaboration, businesses being able to network and work with each other. So the fact that we have 3 Israeli businesses on this panel today is very indicative of that idea of peer collaboration, understanding culture, sometimes language, sometimes how products and food cultures translate is part of the networking that's so important with what we do. We right now have, I think, 90 food businesses at Hope in Maine, let alone all the businesses that we've graduated. We connect you to B2C, other companies, B2C, B2C, consumer, B2B, other companies. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this umbrella brand idea. So let me give you a few examples of how we help international companies, products and makers to translate their brand. This is just a list of a few international companies and products that we are working with today. The first one you see, Sinobox, is a virtual bakery. They have no bricks and mortar, and they do artisanal Chinese pastries. Again, they're a national, actually they're an international company. They bake out of Hope in Maine. They're one of 3 Chinese companies that are actually working together, supporting each other. Ceremony imports tea from organic farmers in China. And they also have an e-commerce business and a cafe, and you can imagine that the cafe cross-sells, you know, the pastries, and they're cross-selling products. Tom's Bao Bao, a little further down the list, is a fast casual bao restaurant out of there's 300 stores in Shanghai, and their first stores in the US actually started with Hope in Maine and us helping them to enter the market. And they offered, again, the other products of our Chinese makers in their stores. Fresh formats, Hillary mentioned Ahold, which is from the Netherlands, which is probably the largest holder of supermarkets in the world. When they wanted to open new markets in the United States, they came to Hope in Maine to do their R&D on prepared foods that would be using ingredients that have GMO, because in the Netherlands, they don't work with GMO ingredients, and here we do. And so we had the very tough job of testing all this delicious food that was being made with GMOs, because they had to translate all their recipes. Yoleni's a Greek company that imports food products from Greek farmers, organic farmers in Greece. They want to be the Italy of Greek food, and we help them to open their first store in Providence. Instead of going to New York or Boston, which are much tougher and more expensive markets to enter, they said, let's use Providence as our test market. So we have helped them with that. Similar to Roma Cappuccino, which is an Italian pizza maker. They did all their R&D at Hope and Main to try to translate their special Roma style pizza and see if they could, make that at scale before they opened any of their restaurants. We have a new company, Madame Croquette from Belgium. She wants to make croquettes, frozen croquettes, which is very big as a European product, not as popular here, but if you ever had one, you would hope that it becomes popular here. And for example, she wants to be able to import gray shrimp, which is something that we don't have here, an ingredient which is critical for some of her recipes here. So this is a lineup of companies from Brazil to Vietnam to Argentina to China that we are working with at Hope and Main, all of which pose different challenges, but ones that we've been well suited to be able to solve. So let me just speak quickly about Israel and the fact that right now our total food imports from Israel is about $380 million. And what's leading the way is snack food at $66 million, okay? And this is an important point. Israeli snack food was coming into the United States most successfully through Trader Joe's. So if you know Trader Joe's, Bamba co-branded with them in order to get into this market. And as have several other Israeli brands, because if you don't know that product and if you don't know that brand, you do know Trader Joe's. And so this idea of co-branding was critical to the success of many of these Israeli companies, from tahini to cottage cheese to the mango sauce. And you can see this co-branding with Trader Joe's. And the reason that I say this is because in recent years, this consumer packaged goods category has, the small companies have been the largest source of growth in consumer packaged goods. And the big companies are trying to imitate the small companies in brand development. But I think people know, the real deal. And so the ability to bring small brands and give them a big voice is really what our platform is about. We help members to introduce new products to buyers and consumers, and we help to gain feedback and insight. And here's another great example, a company called Local Crate that just came to Hope and Main recently, and they are a prepared meal kit. Okay, they're not prepared meals, but you buy the kit and then you can make the meals at home. And you can see on the box, I took a picture, you can see they're co-branding with Hope and Main because they want to show that, hey, we're local. We use local ingredients. Our recipes are from local chefs. And essentially they're selling into Target. So Target is a very big chain here in the US. And they're essentially saying we're local, even though we're large because we're selling through Target. But they want to have that local feel, and Hope and Main is the way that they're doing that. We also work with many online platforms. I call it the screen to mouth economy. And so you can order Hope and Main brands on many, many e-commerce platforms. And during COVID, so many of our companies pivoted to that so that they could really align to what I'm calling the distance economy, where folks are not shopping as much in supermarkets and or going to restaurants. We also have Rhode Island's only tabletop show, which is a food trade show that we host at Hope and Main to help our members be introduced to distributors and institutional buyers, and as Hillary mentioned, Supply RI. So I'm also on the board of the Specialty Food Association. You might have heard of the Fancy Food Show, the biggest specialty food show in the country, and we get a spot there every year for our new and emerging brands. We have something called Meet Your Maker, whether it's virtual or, as you can see here, this is an actual Meet Your Maker event where we can get feedback directly from consumers on products, and it helps you to test your minimal viable product with your consumer. And can you still hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Yes, okay. Because I'm trying to tune my dog out because he would like to present as well. And I also want to mention that our companies, our members get a lot of earned media. So this was the cover of a local magazine, Recipe for Success, how Hope and Main has changed the food scene in Rhode Island. And these are just some of the products that are produced at Hope and Main. I want to briefly mention food trends that have been driven by COVID. Definitely a greater interest in health and wellness, including functional foods and plant-based foods. An exponential increase in grocery orders for Americans online, with only 2% before COVID ever having ordered groceries online to now 20% ordering online. A tremendous opportunity, much less competition. When you're looking at products online, it's not like looking at, 50 different kinds of salsa on a shelf. There might only be three of those products offered on that platform, and people don't price shop as much. They want to get, the high quality product. Personalized meal prep services, especially with the outflow of the workforce from the restaurant industry, are growing, I would say, exponentially. You'll hear from some of our panelists on that. More at-home cooking and a desire for an elevated dine-in experience, with folks having more disposable income to spend on food, going from 9 to 15% in the United States in just a matter of 6 months. And consumers recognizing that this is an existential moment for for supporting small sustainable businesses, or they won't be here. So I know that was a lot of information, but I really wanted to paint that picture for you of what we're seeing as opportunity, and how, Rhode Island is, along with Hope and Main and the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative, is so well positioned to help, translate and bring these companies to the United States in this moment with this launching platform. And I am so proud to introduce 3 of our members, 3 of my friends and Avi's friends that have launched their businesses from Hope and Main, that are here with us today. Chef Eran Geffen, who was with Don Carmel and the King David Hotel, and just an iconic chef in Israel, and his company is Good Vines here in the United States. Anat Sagai, who is the Mosaic Table, and she is launching a prepared meals business that centers all local ingredients, fresh produce, fish, and so forth from primarily Rhode Island. And she has been with an iconic restaurant in Rhode Island for many years. Anat is wonderful. And Guy Hanukkah, who is a graduate of one of our local culinary institutes here, Johnson & Wales. He was in, I believe, Guy, you were in Tel Aviv as a baker, and now he's baking out of Hope and Main. And his business has skyrocketed during COVID times. So with that, I'm going to mute myself, and I will ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and their business, and then we're going to ask them a few questions. So I'm going to go on mute and
so I think perhaps
Lisa, you muted yourself, so who did you want to do?
how about we start with Eran Geffen. Eran, if you could briefly introduce yourself and kind of say tell us your experience with the state of Rhode Island, keeping it short and sweet. Eran, do we have?
Eran, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Great.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. And hi, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, Avi, Adas, and Hillary. About our company, Good Vines, we are a catering that operating in Rhode Island and Boston area. Our kitchen based on Israeli Mediterranean cuisine, and we also providing service of culinary consulting for a company in Rhode Island and Boston area. Thank you.
Anat, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Anat Sagi. I recently started a company called the Mosaic Table. As Lisa mentioned, I source locally, completely inspired by what's growing around us and the small businesses to make prepared meals for people, as well as in the time of COVID, small gatherings and doing events that way.
Great. Thank you. Guy? No. Guy, you're muted.
Sorry.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Good morning, everyone. Good evening in Israel. Lisa, thank you for inviting me. Avi, thank you for arranging it. And Hillary and Adas, nice to meet you. So I started a virtual bakery here just when COVID hit, starting at Hope in Maine. And my bottom line for Hope in Maine is we wouldn't be here if not Hope in Maine. So we operating right now for mainly ordering online in farmers market in Rhode Island. And yeah, with big plans to grow here in Rhode Island.
Thank you. Lisa, do you have questions for the panel?
My first question to the panelists is, why Rhode Island? What has been beneficial to you about launching your business in Rhode Island? Maybe Guy, I'll start with you.
I think that some of the things you mentioned, like Rhode Island being a small hub inside this huge commercial market, whether it's from Boston to New York, gives us a great advantage because the market is not saturated and it is somewhat an easy start and cheaper than other places, which are saturated with more international cuisines and offerings. The platform that Hope in Maine can offer in the area and having them in your back gives you a lot of exposure in a market that, again, is open to new businesses, relies a lot on local companies that I haven't seen it in any other state that I live in United States, how much support the local businesses get. And how much interest there is in diverse and international cuisines also, which is a great advantage, I think, for us, because there's not a lot of Israelis in Rhode Island. And every company that I see, whether it's Iran with Good Vines or Anat with the Mosaic Table, gets a lot of exposure here. And it is a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm. And thanks, Guy. And Anat, what's your perspective on that?
I agree with Guy. I think Rhode Island is fantastic. I always say it's like comparable to the size of Israel, and you get to know people. Word of mouth is a huge thing, and that sense of community and support. as well, the area that we live in right now, and with the times of COVID, I think that agriculture and farms and small businesses supporting each other is really, really wonderful, which is, again, that exposure and that connection and that sense of community. I do want to give a shout out to Governor Gina Raimondo. I think she does a fantastic job of taking care of this industry. I am coming out of restaurants and, you know, just seeing that kind of hub, and she really does care about the food industry and what happens to small businesses and not just big corporations. So I think Rhode Island is a wonderful place to be, and also share new flavors.
Great. Thank you, Anat. Chef, can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced in establishing your business here, and what is the assistance that you needed to launch?
So, yeah, basically when we came, you know, everything is quite new and the market is very, very big and huge, and you can easily find yourself lost if you don't have the right assistance. And for me, Hope and Main walk with me entire process to open my company and give me a wide network to also with consulting, and I think it's for me the most important thing, especially for, you know, to open a new business in the States, and also with contacts and suppliers and meet people, and this was very helpful for us. And as you know, we also live in Boston area, and I think it was very helpful to understand that I can reduce cost and operate it also in Rhode Island, but also in Boston area, in 2 states. And it's you mentioned before, in Boston and New York, the prices it's much more higher, and for us it's helped us to, you know, grow and being optimistic for the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chef. I do see a question in the chat box. Are there any benefits under the foreign trade agreement for fresh and processed foods? Hillary, what are your thoughts about that?
This is where I wish Kathy was on, who might be better versed in this. I don't know. We'd have to look at that. That would be more federal, I would guess. I don't think the state, and again, I'd have to check on this, has additional regs. But I did mention that the state is a foreign trade zone. Now, for food importing, I'm not sure how applicable it would be. I don't know how much, unless it's a dried product that can be stored. But that benefit is when you ship into the state, and let's say you're making something with the ingredient, there's no tariff charged until you ship out and sell into another state. So you defer any potential outlay of cash at the time. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know, it would depend on your operation. What I would add is that we can follow up on that, and I'll confer with Kathy, who might have a better, more specific answer, unless anyone else on the call wants to jump in.
Well, the anonymous participant who asked that, if you want more information on the subject, you can just privately send me your information and we'll follow up with you. Lisa, I got 2 questions sent to me, so maybe we can share them, and we can also get the perspective of our panelists. One would be, what does the local American consumer think about kosher? And is kosher in any kind of way gives you an advantage? Or how well do they know kosher? What do they understand about kosher foods? And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I want to defer to the panelists on that. I have some thoughts, but I'm curious what our panelists think.
Should we just step in, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Please. Thank you.
So in Buns Bakery, we provide mainly for the Jewish community here in Rhode Island, starting in Boston and then Connecticut as well. I think there's a lot of interest. I wouldn't say high kosher, but I mean, obviously there's a big Jewish community. We do not have a kosher certificate, and it never stopped. So far, I haven't had any experience of people who didn't want to buy from us because we don't have kosher certificate. I'm sure that it could be an advantage in a way, but I don't know to say to what extent.
May I add, if there is an Israeli company that wants to come here, we have a very progressive rabbis, and they can work with you to certify. We have one bagel place here that they work with them, and they're kosher. It's called Rabel Bagels, and the Rabbi Dollinger works with them. So if you have any specific, we'll be happy to connect you.
Also, the Rabel actually started at Hope in Maine, Milena. So I do know the rabbi, and he just certified a plant-based company for us as kosher. They don't necessarily sell into that market, but they wanted the kosher certification. So we were able to get that for them. And my own feeling is that, there's a certain subset that wants kosher, but I think, as I agree with Guy, that not having it is not a deficit here. What do you think, Iran? What do you think of the kosher issue?
I agree. Also, we also don't have certificated kosher, but for example, in our menu, we don't use pork or seafood, and from our experience, for most of the Jewish community, it's enough. But again, I don't think that I have the full perspective to if some guests want with a kosher certificate. But for now, I don't think we're going to use this.
My advice, if I can jump in here, to the Israeli companies who are trying to enter the U.S. market, think about the big market. I mean, the Jewish market is important, but there is a much bigger, larger opportunity in the big market. If you decide that you want to be in the Jewish super kosher market, that's okay. But think about it as a much bigger opportunity, and Hope and Main can be that launching point for you.
And most supermarkets have a kosher area, and people or international foods, meats. So if that's something that is interesting to somebody, or they want to go that route, I do think there is a market. I do think that you can get into a niche, especially when building a business. If you're starting off kosher, it's kind of like what organic was like a decade or two ago, where people knew about it, but they weren't just like all the time had to have it. But I think you can get it. I've gotten orders from people who wanted kosher. I'm not kosher certified. I do cook pork and all of that. They paid for the pans and got that going on.
Yeah. I see a question here that what are the first steps to look into when approaching the hub? How do you support innovative products and ingredients that are not familiar to the U.S. market? Well, for example, like Tom's Bao Bao was a good example of that, because they wanted, for example, to use red flour, which is something that which we're prohibited from importing here. And so we did a lot of R&D for substitution for them, so that they could get the same product for the American, palate that they had in China. At first, frankly, they were a little resistant to that, but in the end, we were able to introduce some what I call gateway products that were more approachable for the U.S. For the palate here. But remember, there's also this desire for people to have very authentic food. So there's the issue of ingredients that we may not be able to get or replicate, which we can substitute. And then there's this idea of testing a new product that isn't familiar to the American palate, but that they may really enjoy, and just sort of demystifying that product. And most companies have a family of offerings, so they're not just leading with their one product that may not be your best lead for the American market. I don't know if that answers the question, but that would be what, how we've dealt with it in the past.
Thank you, Lisa. I think we have time for one last question. I see one here in the chat box. It's an interesting question, more on the regulatory side of things. What are different certificates I need to issue before I start exporting, and how long is the process? They're specifically talking about honey products, but maybe you can talk in general about how long is the process of getting all the issuance and certificates before you can start,
Yeah, so it's funny, we've launched 300 businesses, or we've licensed 300 businesses. And I used to say, when you've seen one food business, you've seen one, that, they're all different. And there's a certain truth to that. One thing I will say about Israel is, because there are such high regulatory requirements in Israel, there tends to be an easier time of importing those products, frankly, unlike China, which it does not have the same similar standards to the US. So it is a little bit dependent on how the product is regulated there. But, again, I'm speaking in generalities, and I can give more specific response to this person after the webinar. But because what we've done is create a concierge service, working with, for example, the Department of Health here in Rhode Island, and the USDA, we're a USDA facility. We really are able to take a product that could be, a year-long odyssey, and cut through a lot of that red tape and get it down to something, like 3 months, because, again, it depends on the product, but we have the relationships that can shorten that time frame and create certainty for the member that, they're doing legally and appropriately.
Okay, great, thank you. Maybe just one last question that I got in my chat box is, you talked about, co-branding with retailers, with the largest food chains in the US. There are a lot of them out there. Some of them are very niche. The question is, how do I know which of the food chains or retailers is the best for me, or how do you go about it? If it's too big of a question, just, we have a couple of minutes left, so we'll just touch on the subject.
It's a great question, because, there's a lot of business considerations there of what every retailer has a different arrangement, whether it's Whole Foods, whether it's Ahold, whether it's a distributor. They all have different percentages. They all have different requirements. And so it's something that we don't recommend our makers do right away. We try to keep them in smaller channels where they have more control of their product, and they can sort of test and scale slowly, rather than go right into a relationship, say, with a Target, because you give up a lot of control, and you can also give up a very large percentage of your profits by going with some of them, and you might actually have to change the nature of your product to do it. And so it's not something that we recommend people do right away. We like them to approach that very slowly and with our guidance, so that they don't end up in a relationship that they can't easily unwind.
Wonderful, thank you. If anybody wants to add, Avi, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, number one, I think it was fascinating, and I want to thank Hadass and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting us. A couple of things that I think are very important. One is Johnson & Wales is a culinary school here, but it deals with logistics. So when you start to business in the US, you have to think about your workforce, and that's a huge source of good professional workforce in the business. There are a couple other big names in Rhode Island which one need to know. One is, I think Hillary mentioned, it's UNFI, United Food International. It's one of the largest food distribution in the US. They supply to Whole Food and others. But there is another small company called CVS. Some of you might know. They have around 8,000 stores headquartered here in Rhode Island. Obviously, if you're in an area and you get exposed and you become neighbors and a business, we can, and the state will help you also to connect. So, but the most important thing is, if for me at least, when I watch businesses, and I'm in the business world for many years, Hope in Maine is holding your hand. When you go in, they have connections, they have the understanding how to do things. They've done it 300 times. So I think, and when we bring visitors from Israel, they're just super impressed. We had people from other accelerators in Israel, from universities, the chefs that came that I mentioned, they're just shocked to see what they offer. And one last thing, if you go to New York, you go to Boston, there's none of such. It's not like there are others, there's none. There's no one in this area that does what Hope in Maine does. And I encourage you, get the email from Lisa, talk with her, and we as the Rhode Island Collaborative will help. Commerce Arai will definitely help. And I'm sure the Israelis that are here in the panel will help you too. And again, I think it's a huge opportunity to expose your business. And especially now at COVID time, where you cannot travel, those Israel and Israelis here that work in the business, and Lisa with Hope in Maine can be your legs on the ground. So think about that you have someone that you can speak the language, business-wise and Hebrew, and get it going. So good luck to you, and Shana Tova, and Lisa, and Hillary.
Thank you again, Avi. Thank you again, Hadass, and to the panelists. It's a wonderful community here. That's really, maybe it's not the word that I used earlier on, but it really is about the community of support that we provide. That's the magic of this whole thing. And I think that's also very much part of Israel's culture, is that, ability to lean on each other to make it happen and depends on each other. So that's what we're about. And I'm just very excited about this collaboration. Rhode Island's a wonderful state. Our governor has been, that she actually went to Israel, so she's invested, is just amazing. So we're very grateful, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate with everyone.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, Avi, Hillary, and our panelists. Stay tuned. You're going to get a follow-up email. Thank you, everyone who attended today. Gmar Chatima Tova. And bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.